Most new games ease you in with genteel tutorials and patronising exposition. Duck through this gap, shoot this sign, perform a brutal melee takedown on this oblivious guard. But then there are games whose first few hours are so savage, so merciless, that it's enough to have you petitioning Steam for a refund on the grounds of damaged self-esteem. Sometimes these games get easier as you progress and start to unlock stuff. Other times they're just varying degrees of difficult with little or no hope in sight. Here are 9 games that start hard and get easier. Sometimes. The very first section in Alien Isolation isn't hard at all, unless you get trapped in your stasis pod or get lost trying to find the shower. But as you creep deeper into Creative Assembly's peerless survival horror, things get horribly difficult. Any kind of confrontation usually results in death even before you come face to mouth spike with the xenomorph itself. Jumpy scavengers will gun you down at first sight, dead-eyed androids will smash you like a dropped hamburger, and when you do find a weapon in the 3rd chapter, the ammo is so scarce you'll be afraid to use it. None of this is a bad thing, of course. It's a perfect way of cranking the tension up before you've even met the alien. And when it finally does arrive, you'll be even more of a gibbering pile of nerves than you would have been otherwise. It does get easier later on, if easy is the right word for being stalked relentlessly by an organism designed for murder. You'll be able to craft flamethrowers, bombs, and molotovs to help keep the alien at bay. Provided, of course, you can make it through the early stages of Alien Isolation without experiencing a complete nervous breakdown. Good luck! This one might feel like a cop-out because, like all RPGs, you start at level 1 with terrible equipment and very little idea about what's going on. And that's fine when you're scooting about inside Candlekeep without a care, but as soon as you step outside, your measly health bar and lack of experience can quickly cut your adventure short.
Wait, there is something wrong. We are in an ambush.
It doesn't really matter if you're a destiny-touched mage, preordained to do wondrous things, you'll still go down in one shot if you only have 4 HP. If you don't level up before taking on quests, you can expect to die a lot, especially if you only have 2 people in your party and you don't take it slow. Pause, plan and prepare, and great power will one day be yours. Rush it and, well, you can probably guess the rest. Later on, when you've got full control of your faculties and 7 other heroes backing you up, it's easy to look back and wonder what the problem was. Unless, of course, you quit before you got to that point. The 3rd Elder Scrolls game is a masterpiece, with an incredible main quest and a level of depth that makes it worth playing today, even if the characters move like haunted mannequins and it looks wobbly by the side of Skyrim. But that doesn't mean it's easy. When you first get off the boat in Vardenfell, it all seems simple. You make best friends with a tiny elf if you give him back his ring.
I have a feeling that you and I are about to become very close.
The weather is nice, and everyone seems jolly friendly.
Go ahead, stranger.
I suppose it is my duty to help those less fortunate than myself.
Well, sort of. But step outside the comfort of Seydanine and things soon get nasty. Sure, you can handle a few mud crabs and even the odd angry rodent, but when you start exploring caves and bothering bandits, things start to go wrong. Paths between towns are often perilous even before you start tangling with Morrowind's most hated enemy, the dreaded Cliff Racer. All this is made more frustrating by the fact that every swing has a 2-hit factor. It may look like you're swatting Morrowind's vicious fauna out of the sky, but apparently you're not. Just die already! The best thing Knights of the Old Republic does is also the thing that makes it tough at the start. Instead of kicking things off as a powerful Jedi, you're just a grunt tasked with rescuing a more important and powerful member of the Order.
They're looking for Bastila, not a couple of grunts like us.
And while you're by no means helpless, you have a range of useful skills, depending on your character class, not to mention the dashing Cartha Nasi to help you. It's not the immediate power fantasy you might have been expecting.
It's a dark Jedi. This light is too much for us. We better stay back. All we do is get in the way.
Things get simpler when you finally build your lightsaber later on, but that stuttering start to your Jedi career informs everything you do in the game. In much the same way that Luke Skywalker is an ace pilot first and a Jedi second, it's a fantastic foundation to make you feel like a proper Star Wars character. When you're out swinging your saber and uncovering the truth about your past, those hours spent shooting mutants in the underbelly of Taurus are vivid, humbling, and wholly effective. In general, the Witcher games can take some getting used to. The movement is tricky and combat feels different from many other games. When it finally clicks, you'll feel amazing. But until then, many people end up devoured by ghouls or drowned by drowners, wondering what all of the fuss was about. The prologue of The Witcher 2 is especially tough. You start with Geralt's most basic skills and many enemies can end you in just a few hits. Until you've got a handle on the rhythmic, frenetic combat, you can expect the Butcher of Blaviken to spend most of the time being butchered himself. Worst of all, the original game was released with almost no tutorial at all. A more in-depth guide was patched into the game after release. But even then, it's still a rigorous test of your skills. Everyone remembers their first night in Minecraft. The rush of excitement that came with trying that weird blocky game that everyone was talking about. The dreams of learning how it worked and becoming a billionaire YouTuber. The reality on quite a number of levels was very different. Minecraft is a stern, sometimes scary game with a vicious learning curve. Before you have time to craft a shovel or even consider finding sheep to make a bed, night is falling and the groaning, hissing monsters were shambling towards you. And instead of a simple but elegant wood shack you were expecting to build, your first night was spent in a mud hut, if you were lucky, or buried up to your neck in a makeshift hobbit hole. Luckily, I learned how it all works, and now I'm living in a mansion made of diamonds, in real life and in Minecraft. Don't look at me! Being most scared at the start of the game is a trope in most survival horror games. They generally get easier as that initial surge of fear is surpassed by a desire to unravel the plot, or find the biggest gun.
I'm looking for Silent Hill. Is this the right way?
But even by the standards of the genre, the opening of Silent Hill 2 is monstrous. For starters, the game arms you with a plank. At the risk of sounding like a pretend plank expert, this is misleading in two ways. Firstly, it suggests you should be fighting enemies instead of running away. And secondly, that a plank is a useful weapon to that end. And just because somebody's done a no damage run of Silent Hill 2 on the hard using nothing but the plank, it doesn't mean you should too. Things get easier when you get the pipe and later on a handgun, but nothing compares to those opening 30 minutes of jittering unknown horrors and plank swinging ineptitude. Wait, were we laughing about being armed with a plank just now? Compared to the evil within, a plank would be a luxury. You start off in a festering meat locker being chased by a chainsaw-wielding maniac. And with that in mind, I suppose a plank wouldn't be much use anyway. And once you're through the gauntlet of hooks, traps, and people trying to lumberjack you, things don't get much better. The gun you get is comically low on ammo.
Out of ammo?
And you'll still need to sneak past most of the enemies in the Evil Within's take on Resident Evil 4's Spanish Village. And then there's the explosive traps, and the iffy stealth. A steady stream of new weapons and powerful upgrades means you'll be better placed to take enemies on later on, but the opening levels really are the stuff of nightmares. Which I suppose is the idea, really. Dark Souls, unsurprisingly, is the ultimate expression of this trope. Even the tutorial, if you can call it that, feels a bit reluctant, with scrappy bits of advice scrawled on the floor and a boss that flattens you mere minutes after you've started. And I'd be lying if I said you get used to it. The first 10 hours are a poison cocktail of despair, death, and more despair, but you can't help coming back for more. As hard as it is, every step you scrape forward feels like a monumental achievement. Does it get easier? Well, sort of. Once you get accustomed to all the tricks and traps the game throws at you, you can plan ahead and expect the worst. And you can buff your weapons and armor, allowing yourself fleeting moments where you feel capable. It never becomes simple in the traditional sense of the word, but nothing that comes later on is as shocking or dispiriting as your first run through the opening areas. So there you go, 9 games that punish you at the start but get easier as you play. And if you enjoyed this video, you can make our lives easier by giving us a thumbs up, and please subscribe to Logitech G for more weekly features.